Okay, hi guys, good afternoon.
Hi.
Welcome to Improving the Collective Social Justice in Our Scene. My name is Demba Sano and I'll be moderating this hour. I'm looking forward to the conversation with you guys. We talked a little bit before and I'm really looking forward to delving deeper into the topics we're going to talk about. And this panel sits within the larger theme of the Jazzwoche, which is class or classism in jazz. And to start, I would like to give you one number that frames the issue of jazz the issue of class in jazz quite well. There was a study, the German Jazz Study in 2022, that found that around 60% of professional jazz musicians and about 86% of the emerging ones come from an academically educated household. No surprise there maybe, but in the general population that figure is only 18.5%, and so we can basically sum it up for the most that the way into jazz a lot of the times runs through class, through private paid lessons, for example. But so even before we talk about talent, there's a question of who gets to the starting line in jazz at all. And class, of course, isn't the whole picture. That's where one of today's keywords comes in, namely intersectionality, and it's basically the simple idea that barriers that people face don't arrive one at a time, but they affect the lives of the people simultaneously. So if we imagine being a newcomer in the jazz thing, then being a newcomer is one thing, but being a newcomer who, for example, grew up without much money, who lives in a city, who lives far away from a big city, who faces systemic oppression in form of, for example, racism, sexism, homophobia, or on top of that is struggling with their mental health. All of these problems line up one by one, they pile onto one each other. So today we are less interested in single labels and more in how these things work together and in the structures that decide who gets in, who gets funded, and who gets to belong. And on stage with me to discuss these things are Shanice Bennett. Shanice is a German-British bassist and producer working between Berlin and London. Shanice studied in Cologne at Hochschule für Musik und Tanz and has played with artists like Liane La Havas, Holly Walker and Ali Naiman, and Shanice produces as well for other artists like Muley and is releasing music with their own projects, so sorry. And I'm very happy that you are here. Hi Shanice. Then on the other side of the panel we have Korhan Erel. Korhan is an electronic musician, improviser, composer and sound designer based in Berlin, who has played basically across the world, Asia, Europe, the Americas, and Korhan works across different disciplines, dance, theater, visual arts, and has released more than a dozen albums with other musicians and 2 solo records as well. And Korhan has been a member of IG Jazz since 2022. Hi Korhan.
Hello.
And then last but not least, in the middle we have Emily Intsiful, born in Cologne to Ghanaian and Liberian parents. Emily trained classically before she got recognized in The Voice of Germany. This show opened the door to pop for her. She has toured with the band of Nena, performed in different musicals, released her own debut album Tagebuch, founded the band Denim, and is now at the moment studying jazz voice at the Jazz Institute Berlin. Welcome, Emily. All right, guys, let's get this going. I'm really looking forward to the conversation, and I actually quite like that it's such a small group, because I always feel like it feels a little bit more intimate and maybe takes a little bit away this thing of like, oh, we are on the stage performing or whatever. So let's start with a quick question for all of you, and to start, in 1 or 2 sentences, how would you describe your own relationship to the jazz scene? Do you feel part of it, next to it, or somewhere in between? Shanice, would you like to start?
I think I'm somewhere in between. Also, like having studied jazz and pop in Cologne, I always feel at home in like different genres. So I'm like somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between. Emily, for you?
I would say I have one foot in the jazz scene and then one foot in the world, doing whatever I want. But I feel like with some projects that are like completely jazz focused, I do feel partially part of it. I'm slowly getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's also quite new for you, right?
Yeah.
Or like newer than the other stuff that you did before, right?
100%. Yeah. I started jazz practically with studying at the Jazz Institute to 2023. So that's pretty much where I started doing jazz and connecting with it. So yeah.
Korhan, how about you? What's your position?
Well, I play an instrument that is not listed under jazz instruments. I play electronics. But I am a part of the scene in Berlin because the jazz scene in Berlin officially includes improvised music as well, and that's what I have been doing mainly. And I have played with jazz musicians. I have played in the jazz festival several times. So I am, whether I like it or not, I'm a part of the jazz scene.
Of course, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I think now we have a little bit a better understanding of like where you position yourself in the jazz scene, and to kind of get a little bit more into this thing of like, okay, what is the jazz scene? Who actually gets to decide what that is? Shanice, I would like to start with you. You already said, and I also said in the introduction, you studied music yourself in Cologne, and a little bit, yeah, maybe a little bit different than only classical jazz, but still you know like the academic world from the inside. So when you came into this world, how were you received, and also who was setting the tone for what counts as real jazz? And then looking at the scene now after your studies, basically, has anything shifted, and what kind of resistance do you still run into when you enter the jazz scene, even though you have done the training or have done this, even though you have the academic background?
So I think I came in with a lot of, I don't know, I felt like an imposter like the whole time, because I only learned a year before my how do you say, the Aufnahmeprüfung, the entry exam.
Entry exam, yeah, exactly.
I learned what a jazz standard is and how to play over it with my instrument. And at that time I only played my instrument like 3 years. Like I think I started bass when I was like 14. So I came in with like a year of knowledge on jazz, not having played in the jazz project. So I was like very much trying to find my way through and like practice as much as possible and try to, I don't know, not fall behind. Because all these people already, like all the other students were like so, you know, had years of experience and were like incredibly good, and I was just like, oh shit, like, oops. So, and I think this feeling still persists, like this imposter feeling of like, oh, have I learned enough theory? Have I learned enough? Have I played enough in like straight ahead jazz? That is often like what I encountered is like seen as like the type of jazz, the jazz that counts, at least in my experience. So yeah. That was the experience.
and like, I mean, I think maybe one follow-up question would be like, could you maybe explain what you learned or perceived in that time, what was counted as real jazz in the institution you studied, or in general in the scene, but maybe especially in this academic setting?
I would say, and it's a very hard question, but what counted as real jazz? I don't know, this like, I think more the approach to things, not even like a certain style, because I think in Cologne where I studied, it was very like open, and also the teachers were like also in various genres. But this like very academic approach, that was more the vibe. Like you have to have this written down sheet with the melody that you play, or you listen to a couple of different versions, and this is how you're supposed to play it, and this is how it's supposed to sound. So,
Korhan, maybe coming to you, because you're the opposite case. You're self-taught, and we already talked about, you do things that outside of Berlin wouldn't maybe even be considered as part of the jazz scene. Do you have the feeling that your approach, also like not being in this academic setting, did that open doors to jazz funding, to stages for you, or did you have the feeling that it was harder to get funding or on these stages?
I mean, I have gotten jazz funding. I don't know why, but I did. This is not a joke. I still don't know why, but I did. And well, the thing is, this is going to sound a bit arrogant, but I think I am one of those, unfortunately, few electronic musicians who improvise that can be present on stage without looking at a screen. And being on stage and being present. This was appreciated by especially the older member of the free jazz scene in Germany and in Turkey and in the Netherlands, for example. And they wanted to play with me. Like who like these gentlemen, mostly men, obviously, and were really not like kind of looking down on electronic musicians. They didn't know, and then they saw this person who was able to improvise with them. So through my own decisions, which I took around 2005, seeing laptop musicians scratching their butts and like picking their noses while playing, I said, I'm never going to look like this. And that paid. That paid off. All right. So this was in Amsterdam, and I was like, what are these guys doing? You know, so like, that I think for who I am, I have had quite a bit of access to the jazz scene, including playing with like actual jazz players who play like even like that's so-called straight ahead jazz, or like jazz mixed with pop and folk. I have been in orchestras and ensembles. All
right, thank you. So far we've talked about getting in, and maybe the expectations, what is expected in your case, what wasn't expected in your case, but like getting in is one thing, staying in, making a living in the scene another. And Emily, that's where I'd like to turn to you, because you just said in the introductory round that you're at the start of building a jazz career, and you're studying while raising a child on your own. And that's something that we already talked about a little bit in the pre-talk we had, but that's something that I would like to touch on now. So in this situation, what are the barriers in your studies that hit you the hardest, what are the barriers that hit you the hardest, especially around money, that maybe a colleague without those responsibilities of having a child or even a male colleague might never run into so far?
Yeah, that's a big question. As a single mother studying jazz in Berlin, the first thing I would say is at the university we have a lot of classes or events that take place at nighttime. We have concerts, that's like the main thing. Like we study to play, so all the concerts are at nighttime, so that means I have to find a babysitter that I have to pay to actually partake in those concerts, and I can't just skip them because I have to get the grade, you know. So that is one big barrier, I would say. A lot of courses are in the afternoon. Lots of teachers have like the choice to make their schedules the way they want, but as a mom I have to adapt. So some courses I just can't take or haven't taken till this day because they're in the afternoon and it's not really compatible with daycare hours. But luckily the Jazz Institute was very open to my request. I asked if they would fund my babysitting a little bit so I could actually study. And so far they said yes, and for this semester, or for certain semesters, sometimes I didn't need it because I had help. they fund 10 hours per month, so that I can partake. So that's really nice.
Yeah,
shout out to the Jazz Institute.
Yeah, shout out to the Jazz Institute there, but maybe adding up on that, when we talked about this load that you get to, or not get, that you have to carry, and an institution in this case that is willing to help you, but still, if you go looking for support to keep your career going and to find help through funding, scholarships, prizes maybe, does the system actually reach someone in your position? Because I'm thinking of things like the age cutoffs on a lot of newcomer funding, because even though you are a newcomer and started studying, you might not be the same age as most of the other people that you study with, but also how being black and a woman plays into it in general, if you like to talk about this.
Yes, good question. So funding and age, that's a big thing for me. I started studying when I was 32. I'm 34 now. I have 1 year left. Whoop, whoop. And the thing is, I started from scratch. I started anew because I was a backing singer before that. So I started being my own working self-employed musician only like a year ago, without like any other job or anything else. And that meant that I needed help, and I needed funding, and I needed the support. And some of those fundings do say that they support you if you're a single mom or you have like disabilities. But they also have that age cutoff that they say it's for young musicians. I think I'm young, but they stop at like, most stop at 27, 28.
27, 28, yeah. I was just about to ask what they still consider young. Yeah,
which is also like, I read that and it's always like,
dagger.
Damn, I've been feeling so old at this university already. But then you read that and you're like, every time it's like so heartbreaking, honestly, because it shouldn't matter at what point you start. You should be able to start new when you decide to start new. And you should be eligible for all these fundings, no matter what age you are. But I think it's something that's like very much, in Germany, people are very, very obsessed with age. Like the system supports youth so much. You can look at die Bahn, anything. There's always the youth subscription. They always get like the discounts. But people who started new need a discount as well. They need a push as well. So that is something definitely to be said. Yeah.
It's because I think young people are becoming extinct in Germany. Nobody's making babies anymore.
Yeah, true.
We have to choose that. Soon everybody's going to be old.
Good point.
That's a good point, but like actually picking that up, because I think the idea is like who or what is a newcomer, right? Yeah. Because like if we look at these funding institutions or the prices or whatever, of course the picture they have in mind is that people of a certain age start studying. That is the norm, and because of that we have like age cutoffs. Shanice and Korhan, maybe a question to you when it comes to age. Did you experience, or like, how do you experience the jazz scene now compared to when you were younger? Do you feel like it's easier now to get access to spaces, or harder? And also maybe if you have some experiences with funding that go into that direction, you can also share them.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think, well, the thing is, I'm mostly not in these jazz spaces, and like the classical jazz spaces, so I can't speak much on that. But I can definitely like already like with the age cutoff, what Emily said, like I'm 28, so it's over for me, for my band.
Your life is done.
Oh my god! It sounds so bad.
It's over for me. It's over.
So
well, I never had I never suffered from any ageism because in my scene, no one cares about your age, as far as I know, and there's no funding lines that are age limited.
Yeah. So
because it's also, I mean, maybe like because we're talking about being a newcomer in the jazz scene, which I find extremely territorial, almost fascistic. But in the improvised music scene, it's not an academic scene. It's not like, there are certain people who want to hold corners, but usually it's kind of a pretty relaxed scene, and no one cares about your age or, I have never had any issues. And as I said, like any funding I received to this day had nothing to do with age. I mean, of course, I don't know what the juries talk about, of course, because there are rules and there are like applied. Things that this is too young, this is too old, but I don't know. I can't say anything about that.
Okay. But could you maybe elaborate on what you just touched on with the idea of like a newcomer in the jazz scene? What did you say? It's very territorial.
I mean, what does it? I mean, So like a 23-year-old kid is also a newcomer. I mean, everyone, like everybody, like all of the studying, like. It doesn't matter if you're like 34, like you and they're both newcomers. Like, why should Emily be different?
Of course.
There's no, I can't understand this, like,
and
think, it's not like, it's not like thousands of people are applying for this job or anything like that. It's just like, like relax.
Because I think it's very clear that like a lot of people who are active in the jazz scene like heavily rely on funding to somehow make a living off of it, and then of course I don't know if it's a good idea to make it even harder to have access to this funding, right? To these funding things. But maybe one last question to Emily. Do you, because we also talked about a little bit beforehand what it means to be a woman, but also a black woman in the jazz scene. We talked about care work. Do you have the feeling that, I'm just calling it the load of this work falls different on you as a black woman than, of course, on the man around you, but also maybe on the non-black women around you? And we talk a little bit about being resilient. And do you feel that you actually get the amount of help that you need? We talked a little bit about the help the Jazz Institute provides, but do you feel there could be more things that you would wish for?
Yes, 100%. I would very concretely love if the venues that book moms provided daycare. That would be amazing. Just so we could go there and not have more expenses than the people that we play with. Because usually when we start off playing, and I've been doing this hardcore like since a year, that meant on a Tuesday night, I would also sometimes have to go home with $100 each. Like everyone goes home with $100, and then I give $70 to my babysitter, and I made $30 per night. So I think we need to level out the differences so that a mom, a single mom or a single parent can actually make a living off of this. And yes, as a black woman, that perspective, I definitely do see that. I've been brought up to be the strong person that never shows weakness, and therefore I always seem to people like I have it all together. Especially my colleagues in uni say that, oh my gosh, you're so organized and you have so many gigs and you're doing so well, I could never. And meanwhile, I have a breakdown once a month because I feel like everything's too much. And I feel like the system also doesn't really, which I don't know if it's a black person thing or simply the system lacks a little bit of humanity, because we need to be able to also be weak and be late with paperwork and all those things that are part of being an adult. So I think it's important to shine a light on that part of blackness and on what it means to look strong. Like we need to also kind of show people grace, ask more how they actually are, not assume that they have it all together and they don't need help, they don't need funding, they don't need support, because things look better on the outside sometimes than from the inside. Yeah.
Shanice, Korhan, does that resonate with you? What's your and like especially to you, Shanice, what's your maybe on the point of being black and in the music industry? Would you like to add something on that?
I mean, not really. I can totally agree, and especially also for you as also a dark-skinned black woman, I want to also highlight that, like this colorism thing, like that. I can totally see that you were brought up and have to always be the strong one and have it all together, and like because you're forced to, you can't afford to trip as much as someone else that is lighter skinned. So
but like one thing I would like to kind of pick up on and then maybe switch to Korhan is that you said, I think, which I totally agree on, that people need more humanity and more time to be late on deadlines, for example, or to not open up the letter, right? And I mean, especially when we are in artistic spaces, there are a lot of people who struggle with, I'm just calling it live administration, and Korhan, we also talked about this beforehand, and I'm going to skip a couple of questions and come back to them later, but you basically had one idea what you thought would be a good thing for institutions like the IG Jazz to provide to musicians. And what would you actually want from them? What could they do that would make a real difference in order to make it easier for everyone to access the scene?
And I had so many ideas. Can you remind me of one of them? Because seriously,
so you said
like the access.
So what I'm implying is that you said that it would be amazing if an institution like the IG Jazz would, for example, provide workshops, classes, courses, and stuff
also, I think a lot of. I mean, I witnessed this in my circle. Like some musicians, because they are simply depressed or have some other neurodivergent issue and they can't make themselves write this application, especially if it has to be in German. Yes, we have now AI, but I have been on juries. You immediately recognize if something is written with AI, and then you usually eliminate it unless you have an amazing idea. It is very obvious. I mean, unless you pay really good attention, it's very obvious that it's AI written. And so, I mean, I think like these music unions and chambers and all sorts of organizations should really provide more support. And like really, really well organized support. And also, I think like about the breakdowns, like a lot of musicians have these. They sometimes feel helpless, and they also have like mental issues, I think, and as far as I know, it is very difficult to find a therapist in Berlin, especially in your own mother tongue, because not everybody speaks German enough to have therapy, because it kind of has to be in your mother language, which is, of course, it's not anyone's fault. Like if there's no therapist that speaks Portuguese, that's not Germany's fault, but still, there should be some sort of a support. Because we have had suicides in the past in the scene, and because no one cared about these people, including myself, I'm also I'm also guilty, and I think these people should be taken care of, because the health system is hopeless. It's getting even worse, and there should be some sort of a support mechanism.
And
may I ask
yes,
something?
sir, of course. Go for it.
Would it be, because you said that you recognize immediately when some applications are written with AI. What if you would give those people grace and not eliminate them? No,
it's not automatic. If the application has an amazing idea, yes, but still it creates a negative image, because you know that this person probably didn't spend as much time as the others. It's kind of, it's a weird way of seeing, like applying fairness. No, they're not automatically eliminated, but most of these AI projects are also kind of
Okay.
They're not very intelligent, artificial or not.
But I think you make a very interesting point, Emily, because I think the way we think about applying for a grant or like for funding will have to change in a big way in the next years, because you could also frame it in a way of like, I'm super busy, I'd rather use the resources and capacities I have to play gigs and just do the application with AI, and who can then decide that the person just was working smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something where we'll just have to see how these things change. But Korhan, I would like to come back to you again, because you said, and that's one other thing that we talked about, we have to talk about the funding system, because you've looked closely basically on people or on the people on juries on certain funding projects, on like grants, and you've kind of found that often the same people for years are deciding what gets funded and what doesn't get funded. And you also said that sometimes it's a little bit more a matter of like personal taste and a process that rewards being articulate and charming as much as musicianship. What do you think? What gets filtered out that way and doesn't get access, it doesn't get the funding, and what would a fairer process look like to you?
I cannot say what gets filtered out, because I don't know the taste of these people, but I'm just like really suspicious towards people, whether they do it intentional or not. I don't know. I don't want to accuse anyone, but I know people who have been who are actually on many juries at the same time, and sometimes for 5 to 6 years, even longer. And this creates a problem. Like, no one thinks about this. I think let's say this person is a very well-meaning person, and they probably are.
Yeah.
But then they have a certain taste, right? They like your music, but not my music, for example, like, which is normal, of course. They don't have to. But then this creeps into your decision making. You can't be totally objective. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think the juries should rotate very much. And also, I think like we should really replace this funding system altogether with some other thing, and like basic income like mechanism, because like it's funding is like this is not a condescending remark about homeless people, but homeless people in Berlin come to your table at the cafe and beg for money. This is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like you go to a table, you ask for money, the jury like talks among themselves and then say no. And sometimes they say yes. It is really similar to this.
Yeah.
And not everybody gets that. I mean, you also like have to be a very charming person in some way, or like very smart. Like I know some people in the music scene, they get almost all the fundings because they're so good at it. They're also intelligent people, but they also like they have very good German. They can formulate things much better than I can, or you can maybe. I'm not saying you're stupid by the way, but I am.
No, I get it.
So some people are really good at this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they get a lot more funding than other people.
Yeah. And I mean that also kind of the idea of funding is to actually give more access to more people to the scene, and then it's, if you, especially with like funding, if you kind of crack the code, I can kind of see that it's easier to get funding, but then the question is who doesn't get the funding, right? Who gets to be left out, and then the juries can be a key barrier. So I think that's a very good idea to kind of be like, hey, let's just rotate. Let's just rotate to make sure that different people actually get into these programs and get to sit at the table. Shanice, you are also a producer, and you are, so of course not always, but sometimes can kind of decide who's in the room when you produce their music. You can choose what other people you kind of integrate, who gets to be in the room. Of course, you have an artist who comes to you with an idea, but you have some kind of freedom there. And I would just ask, is there something that you, for example, proactively try to do to kind of include more people that maybe don't get the same access into your artistic practice as a producer?
That's a very good question. I guess it's also like a lot about like also working with people that don't have a lot of money. That we find other ways to like just like, oh, I'm the producer and you have to pay me in advance, or it's just like maybe we can share GEMA or other ways. And of course, I mainly work with like Flinter. Like that's also my focus. And what was your question again?
Just I think you already answered it. If there are like some things that you pay attention to in order to create a more inclusive work environment for you. For example, working with Flinter. Also, just one quick thing. I'm just going to explain the word Flinter quickly so that everyone knows it. So it's a German acronym, but I think it also works in English. So it's an acronym for female, lesbian, inter, non-binary, trans, and agender people, and it's basically used in Germany to describe anyone who's facing patriarchal forms of discrimination, oppression, etc. So you get to decide a little bit more who's kind of in the room with you.
Absolutely, just like focusing on my people.
On your people, I mean, I think that's also something that to a smaller extent can be done when you are part of a jury, and Korhan, you are also sometimes part of a jury. What are things you look for, or are there certain characteristics, of course, in the whole process of being a fair jury member, but are there things that you look for in order to maybe give people chances that don't have the access to funding that other people may have?
I mean, as a jury member, I stopped doing it. I really didn't like the power. But what I paid attention to was I would basically personally eliminate anyone who turned identity politics into a business. I really don't like that. And I also am against like using these identity politics as trends in Germany, like kind of a feel good for white people. We help the black people now, and now we switch to Kurdish people. Let's help some lizards now. Let's move on to like non-human, and then we can help chairs. Let's fund chairs this year. So it's like I'm not a big fan of this because it eliminates a lot of like people, regardless of their identity, or who actually do creative work. Instead of like, because I have seen a lot of projects that where they had no content, but it was about like, I am this, I am that, I am a victim, I'm but there's no content. Are they really a victim? Because most of these people are actually, they're here for with their own money. I mean, I'm not condescending, but they're not really victims. They're kind of playing the victim. If I sense this, it's out for me.
So, but that's super interesting because in that way, that's like kind of a thing of like. The other way around, that you're not looking, or that when people present themselves as I don't have access, you get suspicious in a way.
No, it's not about not having access. No one says I don't have access. If you write that in a funding application, I'm sure you wouldn't stand much of a chance because that's really like so obviously self-victimizing.
Okay. Because
the funding, I mean, you can't know if this person has access or not. The only thing you know is we check this, like if you look if this person was funded before, if they have been funded many times, especially by the same institution, you put sometimes, unless it's an amazing project that pays a lot of other people also money, you kind of consider, but normally you set it aside, like this person has had enough, let's feed other people. Kind of thing, I mean, that was the main idea behind the jury work I did. Not only person, like almost anyone was paying attention to this. And of course, we always paid attention to the fact that we were not only funding white dudes, but also other people. And that was something that is actually like in all jury work I done, this was one of the main things. But of course, then on the other hand, if someone you want to support submits a really bad application, you can't do much about it if it's bad.
Of course.
I mean,
and I think it's also super interesting to kind of think about because most of the funding comes from big institutions, and I think it's sometimes hard to think about, okay, what actually moves an institution, what actually kind of makes them change, for example, their funding rules. And Emily, you said that you talked to the Jazz Institute about childcare, and they actually moved, and they actually listened to you and expanded the childcare hours for you. And from your perspective, having gone through that process, what does it take to make these institutions move, and where do these institutions still not think about access and barriers for people?
Can you specify a little bit?
Yeah, so
big...
it's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in two halves. Maybe the first half. What did it take to actually move the university to expand their childcare hours? Was it a lot of work? What did the process look like?
Surprisingly, it was easier than I thought. They had a commission meeting with all the professors and staff. They have that once a month, and they said you have to wait till the next one and then just present your case. Mm-hmm. And I said, this is my life right now. I'm a mom. Do you maybe have any funds left for the situation? Mm-hmm. And they said, we would really like to support you, so we're going to vote on it and let you know. And most of them voted yes. So it was quite easy. The thing I would say that I've learned, that was a very, very big year for me with big decisions, where I stopped being a backing singer, and I told myself I have to think like a man. Mm-hmm. Because some of them don't set themselves limits. They just go for it, and they don't think too much. Mm-hmm. And I feel like my imposter. Oh, sorry, that was the mic. Mm-hmm. My imposter syndrome, coming from my background, sometimes holds me back. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like, channel your inner white man. You know, what would a white man do in this situation? They just sometimes go and ask and do things and don't overthink. And that was a big thing for me, to be courageous, to just go for it, to ask the questions, even though it's like very embarrassing sometimes to like ask for money or put yourself out there and say, I need help, but do you want to help me? I have something good here. And I feel like that has opened a lot of doors for me, and sometimes even showed me that some doors aren't closed. Yeah. You know, I just have to check. You know, check if they're closed, and
But I think that's amazing to hear, and maybe also something to learn from for other institutions in the jazz scene, that it's actually not that hard to change things if you are on the artist side, but also from the side of the institution, that it's definitely worth it to listen to the people and actually change it and give them more access. Because on the other hand, the consequence would have been that you probably couldn't do your studies like you can do them now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That wouldn't have been possible. And I went through a lot to go to that university and to stand at this entry exam. And I almost didn't do it. And teachers who already taught at the University of Arts told me, listen, you're quite old. They have a limit, an age limit. You're most likely not going to get in there. And that's just the reality. And then also your jazz vocabulary is not really there. So just prepare yourself. And I just did it. And then lo and behold, I was the only singer that actually, accepted into the school. Yeah. So I just had to be courageous and listen to myself and, break down that barrier and also see that there was none,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a very nice picture to see, that we sometimes imagine barriers that are actually not there, but then we can also, if they're there, tear them down. And Emily and Shanice, you've both also worked a lot more in the pop scene. so to speak. And we also talked about that diversity in general, for example, or making the pop scene more accessible for people who are maybe queer, who are not white, whatever it might be, is a little bit further along compared to the jazz scene. It's more of an actual priority on stage and behind the scenes. For both of you, do you think there's something that the jazz scene could realistically learn from how pop does it when it comes to including more people?
Yes.
Yeah, please, go for it.
Shanice.
Go for it.
Shanice, please speak. You say something.
I mean, what could they do? I mean, just do it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I've also had like a very, I guess, not unusual, but like I had the privilege to work with a lot of artists that were very, they paid a lot of attention to like have an inclusive team, Flinter Focus, like Kat Frankie, Ali Neumann, Suki. Like this is the first jobs I had in Berlin. So I was already in this bubble of like people really making an effort and like trying to have a nice work environment. So I think you just gotta do it. Like I mean, there's not much more I can say. It was that's like, yeah, next time for your tour, book a tour like a Flinter tour manager or a light person, a Flinter light person or whatever. Yeah. So there's so many resources, there's so many groups, like there are so many like lists that people started making with a lot of names, phone numbers. You just gotta call someone. Yeah. I was just about to say, because the databases are there, like you can kind of look it up. But Emily, do you also think there's something jazz could learn from pop when it comes to being more inclusive, more accessible?
Yes, 100%. When I think about the Berlin Music Commission, the Listen to Berlin bubble, their jury looks, you know, they have people of color in there. They really try to make the jury diverse. So you're not surprised that those people are chosen for the actual compilation. And I was positively surprised. It's very inclusive, and they have lots of workshops and make sure that not the same people get addressed. Like, you know, I can only speak for the Jazz Institute, where we have workshops that are sometimes very much instrumentalist based, and that sometimes also means that they're very male focused, because we have more male people on instruments and more singers on vocals. I think there's a lot to be learned from the pop scene, and I'm glad it's there for me as well. I'm glad I have one foot in that world, so that I can actually have funding and access and no limits. You know, they also don't have the age thing there, which is really nice. Yeah.
So thank you for making that very clear, that there are like some things that people can actually maybe take away from other scenes, and where it's not like we don't have any idea what we can do. We have the examples where we can look upon. All right, looking at the time, I would like to already, before we open it for questions, do a little closing round, and we're gonna start with Korhan. So we've heard a lot of ideas what needs to change, a lot of very concrete ideas, I think, that we can all take away. So to close, I'd like something smaller and more personal from each of you. So picture the jazz scene, whatever that is for you, 5 years from now, and name one concrete thing that's changed and makes it better for the person coming up behind you. What is that thing in 5 years, Korhan?
I will shortly propose EG Jazz a course. Emily leads the course how to think like a white man. That I want to see. Okay. She's your new teacher. And, this has to happen. Come on.
That is so good.
Yeah.
That is so
good. So the jazz, the improv. I mean, I can only speak for the improvised music scene, which I am about to leave, by the way.
Oh.
I'm actually going through more like composed new music stuff because I'm bored. I'm 53 years old. I'm much older than you guys, so I'll soon die, and I want to do something else. Anyway, we will all do. Like, don't think it won't happen to you. And so I can't say, because the thing is, that question I think entails what's going to happen to Berlin.
All right. But
because Berlin has been basically the trash can of Germany. Like, everyone who didn't fit were like dumped here, like to West Berlin. Like, all the queers, the punks, the artists, the mentally deranged, everyone, like the crazies, everything. Like, you just send them to Berlin. Don't take them in the army because they'll probably shoot themselves. Yeah. So I think that was also a thing. Yeah. And but now it's changing, right? Like, those punks and artists and improvisers, we're not really welcome here. Like, if you move to Berlin now, there's no way you can find accommodation almost. Like, it's impossible unless you're a single person who does not, then you can find a room maybe and pay like 5 times more than what you used to pay. So that will be the question: will there be a scene? Mm-hmm. Because I come from Istanbul, which is a much larger city, but there was a scene, but we all had other jobs. Mm-hmm. And we all had like places to live that we inherited from our families and stuff. Like, we were well off. But here it's impossible. So that will be like, I don't know what kind of a Berlin we're going to leave to people. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a city that is becoming more like for programmers and like coders, which is fine. I mean, they're welcome, but I don't think the city is as welcoming as it used to be 10 years ago, 12 years ago, towards these more niche musicians. And for straight ahead jazz, I don't think Berlin has ever been a strong city for it anyway. There are not that many straight ahead jazz clubs. It was mostly free jazz and weird stuff. So I don't know. I don't have that question.
Yeah. Okay.
Will I be in Berlin in 5 years?
Yes.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, of course. But maybe to the other two of you, if you imagine yourself being in the scene or part of it, next to it, on the edge of it, whatever you want to call it, in 5 years, can you think of one concrete thing that hopefully has changed in 5 years and makes it now better for the next person coming up behind you, with your position, with your identity, with your needs, with your life experience? What would need to happen that it's easier for the people coming back, coming up behind you? Sorry.
Well, I mean, I kind of have to disappoint you. I kind of have to
agree
agree with with Korhan, because not even just what is happening to Berlin in 5 years, what is happening to Germany in 5 years, because all the things obviously we talked about are things that can be applied to anywhere in our society. Yeah. So I'm a bit like, where are we heading? Like, fundings are being cut. We're heading into a not so nice political direction. So I have, there's not one thing, there's just so many things that need to be done. And maybe the one thing that we can do is not to lose hope, which sounds a bit hippy-dippy, I guess. But I think we just have to not lose hope, and we have to keep support each other, in the scene, and not be elbows and stuff. We have to stick together. I think maybe that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only emphasize that. I think we should not just keep supporting each other, but start supporting each other. There's a lot of, like you said, rivalry here. But as for the concrete answer to that question, I feel like I inevitably have to make changes for myself as a mom. So I'm always in the constant of it all. And therefore, I do believe that after me, there hopefully will be more parents and most of all single mothers or aspiring single mothers who believe that that's possible to say, I'm going to study because I've done the work for people. I've actually made sure that there is funding for moms if you study at the Jazz Institute. And I even have a very, very like bold idea for one day for the if Berlin turns into a good place, you know.
Hopefully.
But like, I thought about like what would I need for this, because 3 weeks ago my babysitter left me hanging, and I didn't know what to do. And I thought we need something like a 24-hour daycare for people who work outside of the system. This also applies for people who work at a hospital. Let's be real. There's so many jobs where people just can't really access, like they're always struggling. They never see their kids. We need a 24-hour daycare where people can bring their kids. The kids should be able to sleep there, and it should cost us like, you know, just, you know, a fraction of what we pay now, because some of us, we pay like up to $1,000 per month to just be on stage, you know. So something like that, funded by the system, by the state, so that we also have the option to actually gain wealth, you know, not just get by, but we want to also like be better and be good and leave something for our kids. And that shouldn't just be left for cis male lawyers. You know, it would be nice if a musician mom could, you know, get there as well.
Definitely.
I don't know if it still exists, but a few years ago, maybe like 5, 6, I don't remember exactly, but there was actually a funding line in North Rhine-Westphalia for moms.
Okay.
They were getting money monthly outside like child allowance, like musician moms. They were getting until their kid reached a certain age. I don't remember which age, but like this could easily be done in Berlin. Hell, it could easily be done by like I am a recipient of Arvore. I know. I do. I get it.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
I will tell you.
Okay.
It is basically a Swiss funding that funds musicians, pop in all genres except for new music and classical, and you get 4 years of like money every month. It's not bad. But why don't they also have a separate line for like moms? Not only single moms, because if a mom is married, this doesn't mean that she should not have her own financial independence, right?
Of course.
Divorces happen. Things should happen. So I mean, it's not only single moms. You know, I mean, any mom. Even single dads. Why not? So.
100%.
Thank you for that. I think for me to kind of sum it up and kind of given maybe outlook, especially the last 2 examples you gave, for me are a very clear call to action for like all the music institutions we have, not only in the jazz scene but also in the pop scene, to just apply more pressure to the government. I know that it's sometimes a little bit hard from our position, but I think we've collected so many thoughts and all the needs from musicians today that it is important that institutions like IG Jazz or whatever things are out there try to kind of apply pressure in a more political way, because I think it's very important that we need more funding. I don't have to tell anyone that, and we apparently also need to support our artists more. And with that being said, thank you very much to Shanice, Ruby, Bennett, Korhan, Erel, and Emily Intsiful, and thank you all for listening. And now we can first thank our panelists and then go over to questions.